Kari Lake and Charlie Kirk, both in full retreat. What was it, 2 or 3 years ago in the Republican primary debate for governorship? Now, granted, this was in 2022 when we did not have vehicles that were self-propelled and you needed a horse and buggy to pull these. And we didn't, the internet, I think, was still dial-up, right, in 2022? Kari Lake, it was so long ago,
I know,
said that she was in favor not of the 2022 law that was passed by Republicans in limiting abortion, but the 1864 law that was. And now, almost a full 24 months later, it's actually probably about 24 months probably, Kari Lake has done a full 180. Here she is.
Total ban on abortion that the Arizona Supreme Court just ruled on is out of line with where the people of this state are. The issue is less about banning abortion and more about saving babies. I agree with President Trump. This is such a personal and private issue. I chose life, but I'm not every woman. I want to make sure that every woman who finds herself pregnant has more choices so that she can make that choice that I made.
All right, pause it 1 second.
So she's pro-choice.
She's pro-choice.
She's pro-choice.
Pull up that other video. Find that one from the other day so that we can juxtapose these. We can let her play. But the idea that this is a personal choice, 100% not the case. Also not what Donald Trump said, even at his best. Because originally he said a 16 or 15 week ban. At other times, he said, you got to send, I mean, with Chris Matthews in 2016, said you got to send the woman to prison who gets an abortion. Then he said he's okay with states banning abortion. He said that. Now, this is a long time ago, grant you. It was Monday of last week. He said, I'm okay with states banning abortion, up to the states. And now she's saying, I agree with Donald Trump. That is the choice of the woman. Lear, play this, and then we'll play that other thing from the debate.
Pregnant, has more choices so that she can make that choice that I made. I'll never forget the first time I got pregnant, taking that pregnancy test, looking down, and I was excited, but I'll be honest, I was afraid as well. I was nervous.
Yes.
I was anxious. It's natural for women to be nervous and anxious when they're pregnant. I never would ever assume that any woman had the same exact feelings I had or situation I had. We know that some women are economically in a horrible situation. They might be in an abusive relationship. They might be the victim of rape. I agree with President Trump. We must have exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of a mother. We as American people...
Pause it. So just a reminder, we have countless examples of women who have nearly died, of women who may be unable to carry a pregnancy again, because doctors in these situations where there's supposed exceptions don't know what constitutes a threat to the life of the mother. Is it 30% chance they're going to die? 20%? 15? 50? 75%? There's no way to know. And of course, as you know, everybody gets a rape conviction within 16 weeks. And so there's no problem. It only takes 2 or 3 months for an investigation and a rape conviction all the time. And of course, if you're, it's even easier if it's a function of incest. I mean, that's just absurd, these exceptions. Right,
remember when Texas is like, oh yeah, we'll start investigating rapes now because it's important.
Oh yeah, no, Abbott, I think, said we're not going to allow rape anymore in this. All right, let's just do with the older clip because this is so much lying. Let's just make sure that we have this juxtaposition of these, here she is. And to be fair, again, folks, this is Kari Lake all the way in 2022, back when just we could only imagine. Yes, we could,
oh my gosh!
We could only imagine that people would be sometimes actually in steel vehicles flying over the air. Go ahead.
Kari, we'll start with you on this one. The new law banning abortion, the new law banning abortion in Arizona after 15 weeks. There's that law, and there's a territorial era law which bans all abortion, Zippo, over Which law do you think should take effect?
My personal belief is that all life matters, all life counts, and all life is precious, and I don't believe in abortion. I think the older law is going to go into effect. That's what I believe will happen.
Okay, but you approve of that? What, at conception?
I believe life begins at conception.
Okay, what do we do about abortion pills? What do we do about...
I don't think abortion pills should be legal.
Not in Arizona. Karen, what do you think?
She doesn't think
There you
abortion
go.
pills should be legal. So when she says she's pro-choice, she's pro-Republican judges having the choice.
I am okay with women wanting an abortion. I just am not okay with them getting one.
Yes.
We're all different. And for you, your pregnancy will be forced. For me, it won't. That's okay.
You forgot to put like the soft
You can
music
choose.
behind you to give you a sense of like, this is not...
I'm okay. I'm going to do the Dutch shot too. I'm okay with women not agreeing with me that they want to be pregnant, but they've got to be. And they're going to carry the child soon.
Wow.
Like President Trump says, 4 different things. And we know in the end which one's going to be true.
Oh gosh, your empathy is just coming through the screen.
Yep.
I feel like you really understand my situation.
I totally understand. I get it. Let's do some B-roll of some women who are seeming despondent. How's that?
I see you. I hear you, but I won't do anything to help you.
Let me feature some B-roll of women that we didn't have to license because it was Creative Commons stuff. Unbelievable.
It just took all that polling to make Republicans pro-choice, I guess.
And Charlie Kirk, in the 2022 election that we just played that clip of Kari Lake at her primary debate, Charlie Kirk's TPUSA went all in for Kari Lake in Arizona. The expenditures of TPUSA in Arizona, I think, were the highest of any state. And this was the organization where this guy, how old is Charlie Kirk now? 30-year-old college student is trying to convince other college students who are getting increasingly younger than him that it's cool to be a conservative. And so they dumped all of this cash into bringing out the youth vote. And a counterfactual, it's tough to know what would have happened if they hadn't poured all that cash in. But the fact is that Kari Lake, I think, performed the worst of any Republican anywhere with young people
Yes.
in Arizona. And so here he is now sort of just backfilling for Kari Lake's backfilling, because Kari Lake is in full reversal now. I mean, she has done a 180 perfect pirouette on abortion rights, and Charlie Kirk is here for it, and he's the one who's basically spotting this. He's sitting there with the net here he is reacting to Donald Trump's also sort of like backpedaling on this.
The statement is excellent. Let's start there. President Trump is talking about how the Democrats are the extremists. That is absolutely right. I'm neutral on this particular Truth Social post. I'm not. I understand why he's doing it, and let me defend it. Let me think why he's doing it.
Pause it. What's beautiful about this is that this is not even, incidentally, this is not for normal people. Charlie Kirk is not having to do this. Like when Kari Lake goes on and does her backing up. I believe in a woman's not right to choose, but I believe that people can have a different perspective than I do, even though I ultimately will force them to carry the pregnancy. But when she does that, she's doing that for normal people. Mm-hmm. But Kirk has to do this now. Kirk has to basically, it's like, imagine a guy who's got one leg on one building and another leg on another building, and he's 30 stories in and then all of a sudden the buildings start going like this, and his legs have to start spreading, and he's like this. That's what he's doing, because he's not talking to normal people. He's trying to make his lunatic fringe audience be okay with where Trump and Kari Lake have to be because they have to talk to normal people. So this is why he's neutral on this. He's right in the middle. He's got one leg over here and one leg over here, and he's trying to sort of walk this sort of like invisible tightrope.
It's funny to say, like, my daddy said they're the extremists, so never mind that we've been losing elections on this.
Exactly.
I'm not. I understand why he's doing it, and let me defend it. Let me think why he's doing it. The current abortion decision by the Supreme Court in Arizona was technically legally the right decision. It's one that I morally agree with, but it is unpopular with the people in Arizona, and Arizona is a must-win state. So President Trump is trying to float out the idea, hey, he does not want to be tied to the unpopularity of this current measure. That is why he put that out there. However, there is an email we got here from John, which is, Charlie, I'm not voting for Trump anymore. What is the point if Trump compromises on abortion, even if he has a better chance of winning? Why not offer everyone free school, health care, UBI? That would help him win an election, right? So based on what do you think, whatever it takes to win, compromise when you can't govern. Trump has abandoned the pro-life cause, so he doesn't deserve my vote. I have never said you should do whatever it takes to win. I've never said that. I've never alluded to that. However, you want to try to have the most morally clear position that can fit within the popular will of the people so you can get political power. There are positions that we hold that are unfortunately untenable with the American people. So you try to find one that is the best version of that, and then you try to find how can you make it fit with the American people.
Pause it. Now, let's just be clear here. These guys have been claiming this is murder. They've been claiming that, like, literally, like, you know, Democrats are killing babies outside the womb.
Executing them.
And now, I agree. There are times where you have to sort of like subject yourself to political realities. But they're talking about putting UBI, putting free healthcare, doing all these things are materially beneficial to the vast majority of people. In fact, those are broadly popular. The problem is the Republican Party is having to face the fact that, like, on this issue, they can obscure the other issues, right? Because they can talk about, like, well, we've got a special plan that's better than Obamacare. We got a special plan that's better than Medicare for all. They never roll it out. It never exists. And they can say, like, oh, we want prosperity for everybody.
Innovation.
It's just that the way that we're doing it just happens to be, we're going to get prosperity guaranteed for the top of top, and it's going to trickle down. There's always like a story that they're going to get there. But in this instance, because like people are feeling the impact of their policy, right? Like, had they rolled back Obamacare and millions of people had lost Medicaid, and we were back into the situation where, you know, you had rescission and you had annual limits on what, there'd be a big blowback. It wouldn't be quite big as this, I think, because of the dynamics of healthcare. But there would have been a big blowback, and a blowback that would have been big enough maybe to have actually maybe gotten us further along closer to a sort of a Medicare for all type of situation. But now they're faced with their whole prescription for American society has now actually like gotten a step too close to being realized. And they realize, like, oh shit, how are we going to maintain this minoritarian rule when people are getting a taste of it and they really don't like it?
And they can't lie anymore. I think that's the thing that is freaking them out, which is that they've always been able to obfuscate and say, well, we're going to just leave it up to the states and then have them make their own determination. Everything will be okay, and we'll stop there. But you see that they don't want to stop there. I mean, Lindsey Graham is making it clear that they don't want to stop there. He's floating a national abortion kind of limitation bill. Well, and like, also,
I don't think anybody thought that this would come about. I mean, that's what it was. It wasn't so much that they were hiding the fact that they wanted an abortion ban or they were going to abortion ban just in the States. I think for a long time, people just assumed it's never going to happen anyways.
Well, I mean, when Trump was able to appoint Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement, I think we thought that this was a significant possibility. I mean, if not a probability that Dobbs would happen.
Some people did.
Some people did, I guess, but maybe not everybody in the public.
A lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Like there's no way this is going to happen.
The American public, you mean, basically. So then, like, when the reality sets in, that's when things change.
100%.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
on that.
what's the worst that could happen?
Right. And the moon fall into Lake Michigan. But before, we hear from him again, there was a Wall Street Journal poll today about suburban women in 7 swing states, which don't take every polling as gospel, but this is key. Abortion was considered a make or break issue for women in suburban areas in these 7 swing states, by far the most motivating issue for the group. And that's different than other kinds of polling, right? Where you can in general say like, 50% say trans women should participate in sports, 50% said they don't, whatever, I'm making up those numbers. But is that going to motivate people to come out to vote against trans people? No. This is a motivating issue for suburban women. That's why Kari Lake is lying and being like, I hear you, because that's her exact demographic. That's what they're concerned about.
I mean, that's the same dynamic that we've talked about for a long time. You get 75% people who want to restrict gun rights.
Right.
But that's not what they're voting on.
Yep.
That's what you ask them. And how, is that going to get them to the polls? Is that going to be the overriding issue? This is the closest to a single issue voter that we have to the right of to the left of Republicans. They have a couple of single issue votes, and those issues will switch, from time to time because they're not untethered. But so here's Kirk trying to explain to this guy and really to his audience. You know how we've been saying abortion is literally life or death, and how we've been saying that this is murder, and you would have to sanction murder. Well, Arizona's a swing state, so go ahead.
Political power. There are positions that we hold that are unfortunately untenable with the American people. So you try to find one that is the best version of that, and then you try to find how can you make it fit with the American people. That is the whole idea of the will of the people and the sovereign. And sometimes the people, they don't want morally correct.
Maybe you don't just manufacture a belief in people like the closest you can. Like maybe you just ask the people and like have elections and stuff like that.
This is just so it's amazing the gymnastics that has to be done here. It is amazing.
To find one that is the best version of that, and then you try to find how can you make it fit with the American people. That is the whole idea of the will of the people and the sovereign. And sometimes the people, they don't want the morally correct and clear position. So do you completely betray, or do your deeply held beliefs that are rooted in scripture and rooted in truth? Of course not. So no, Trump is not pro-choice, and I think it's kind of laughable if somebody were to say that. This is
Keep going. This is fascinating. Is that it?
And you should let go of those beliefs. If you're listening and you're like having any kind of cognitive dissonance about this, abandon your belief that you should have the state control women and their pregnancies.
What it also does, what's fascinating about it is it sort of like returns him to the starting position of like, we are part of a smaller group that has a higher sense of morality, that knows better than the rest of the people. We have attempted to force at least small populations. It's okay to ban it in Alabama. It's okay to ban it in in Mississippi. But when you come to a swing state, you may not want to do that. Their morality is state-based. The supremacy of their morality is state-based, as you can see. It's
they respect states' rights.
It's fascinating.
So much so that their morality changes border to border.
We have about 90 seconds of Ben Shapiro on kind of the same beat. If we want to take Emma, I'm curious how you as a woman feel how.
Oh, good! I get to put on my female representative hat here.
Yeah. He makes a pretty strong argument here. You might not have considered.
Okay, so. The Arizona legislature, at this point, the governor, as you know, is not, in fact, Kari Lake. The governor is Katie Hobbs. Kari Lake lost to her, despite all of the rumors to the contrary. She lost to the wet dish rag, who is Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs is a Democrat. Here's Katie Hobbs lamenting the decision.
It is a dark day in Arizona. Just now, the Arizona Supreme Court issued its opinion in Planned Parenthood v. Mays, upholding one of the most extreme abortion bans in the country. The Republican majority in the legislature has time and again refused to act to protect our freedoms. They have refused to repeal the extreme Civil War near total abortion ban. In fact, the Senate President and House Speaker fought in this very case to keep this extreme ban in place, and as it stands, they might have their way. They have refused to act to protect IVF and contraception. Instead, they tell women to put aspirin between their knees.
No one says that.
Well, I'm
Pause
proud
it
to
for
be
a second.
backstop-
I got news for you. Google Foster Freeze, who was one of the biggest, I think actually for Charlie Kirk, maybe.
Right.
Foster Freeze, in fact, did say that publicly. He was one of the early Republican billionaires who has funded all of these people's careers.
I thought it was Todd Aiken, but he's the one who said God has a way of aborting it if there's a rape.
if
Yeah,
there's
he was the
rape,
one who
yeah.
didn't believe in actual rape.
Legitimate rape.
Legitimate rape, sorry. But Foster Freeze is the one who said put in aspirin. And also, I have to say, my high school girlfriend's dad also used to say that back in the day. That was a big Catholic thing. But go ahead.
They tell women to put aspirin between their knees.
No one says that.
Well, I'm proud to be a backstop to their
Pause
extremism.
it. Just let me also be clear. That was the joke. You want contraception? Take an aspirin, hold it in between your knees. That's the way you don't become pregnant.
Right.
People have
Basically,
Googled
don't
that.
put out.
Yes. Keep your legs closed.
Between their knees.
No one says that.
Well,
No one
I'm
says
proud
that.
to be a backstop to their extremism. Arizona women should never have to fear the next court decision.
Okay, first of all, you shouldn't have to fear a court decision because you shouldn't go get an abortion. Just as a moral matter, you should not pursue abortion and believe that the court is the imposition to you. Because abortion is immoral and wrong and sinful. Okay, but put all of that aside. The politics here are very
So
good for
there we
them.
go. I mean, I appreciate the clarity of that, right? Which is essentially just admitting that this is about controlling what women want to do.
Well, I get to decide what is sinful for you, and for you women, it is sinful. It was sinful for you to have sex in the first place.
Yes. Yeah.
So
and that-
consider yourself lucky you haven't been struck by lightning already.
So if, say, somebody is having some sort of issue with their fetus, it's affecting their uterus, it's affecting their health care, what is his solution? Essentially, just suffer in silence. And if you die, that's okay, because that's God's will. And he is punishing you.
As a woman, it is sinful for you to even raise such questions.
I know.
Allow the men to get together and decide
Right.
for you. And actually, just the Christian ones. I mean, but also the fundamentalist Jew ones. Let's just let the fundamentalists handle this. I'm part of the gang, right, guys?
Yeah. Man.
Is there more to this?
No, that's it.
Oh, gosh. Well, there it is. I mean, they're all struggling with this. How are they going to sort of like walk this tightrope between allow the politicians to lie? And now look, this is, and I think it seems like more of a stretch for us to watch these right wingers say, let Donald Trump lie about this because he needs to win Arizona, he needs to win Wisconsin, he needs to win Pennsylvania, whatever it is. Because I think a lot of these fundamentalists in the first place, this concept, they're okay with it. The idea of lying for the Lord is not something that I've made up. And the idea that you could have someone like Donald Trump, they don't think Donald Trump is a paragon of morality
Right.
or Christian wholesomeness. They think, and part of it is like sort of it because it's consistent with their scripture, that because he's a sinner, that God has chosen him. You know that John Voight thing? I mean, it's really creepy. I know it's from February, but God has chosen Donald
It's
Trump.
an imperfect vessel.
He
I
is
mean,
an imperfect vessel.
Mike Pence said as much, by the way. I mean, basically, there was that long profile of him. I forget if it was in the Atlantic.
Yeah, we don't need it. We don't need him.
But back in, when he basically talks about his like extremely religious devotion to serving God through Donald Trump and through the ends justifying the candidate or justifying the politician, and the end has been achieved, which is the rollback of a fundamental right for people who can get pregnant in this country. Yeah.
For conservatives I know, or at least growing up, like I feel like this might be showing like a crisis of meaning in the audience of these people, because what was the draw to conservative politics where I grew up was abortion. Like it wasn't like the tax crap or whatever. I wasn't in that. Maybe that's in some communities, that's what draws people, but it was just, I'm going to Ohio for like the March for Life or whatever they're called, Steubenville, and then we're going to like basically be radicalized as anti-abortion extremists. And like it's weird because that is what Ben Shapiro's peddling back to. Like it is just morality. And Charlie Kirk even also like, look, don't have any second thoughts about this programming you've been operating off of for like 20 years now.
It's sinful.
Well, the interesting thing about what you're saying though is that if you look back at the other sort of like what were the totems for the Republican Party? I mean, Obama said it was, it was guns, God, and what was the, I can't remember the third one now, but maybe it was the deficit. No, I don't think it was guns, it was clutching. So it was all sort of like social ID. And there was very little basis, but the loss of like Paul Ryan and his ilk blew out the whole deficit stuff. Like all of that deficit austerity sort of like mantra, that was where morality came from. That's been gone. That's gone out of the Republican politics now. And in the event that Donald Trump sort of like burns up this abortion stuff, because Democrats are going to keep hammering it, and the more they have to like sort of like, untether it from the reason why you come to the polls to vote. And it's just Donald Trump. Donald Trump is eventually going to be gone. Now, he may be president for 4 years, and I believe that would be disastrous because we would probably have another Supreme Court justice. We have more on the courts, and God knows what he'll do as president. But if he loses, it's going to be hard to repair. It's not going to be, I'm not talking like 25% of the Republicans are going to be disillusioned, but even if it's like 5 or 10%, who get a little disillusioned by this thing of like how easy it was for them to throw it off. And for them to admit that most people don't agree with them, that the majority of people don't agree with them. It's going to put people in a position where that's like, they not only have to believe that they're morally righteous, but they're that much more morally righteous than that many other people. Like, again, we're not talking big numbers, but it's going to undercut maybe 5%, 10% of like the main sort of attachment they have to this Republican Party. It's going to be fascinating to see how far they're willing to walk away from this. Because the other, the other way you could respond to this, if you're Ben Shapiro or you're Charlie Kirk or Kari Lake for that matter, is to go, I really disagree with Donald Trump. I'm going to vote for him because there's a whole host of other issues, but he's wrong on this. He's wrong on this. Abortion is a moral issue. I mean, that would be the position that you wouldn't have to sort of justify. You could say, like, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump because I think Joe Biden's a threat for X, Y, Z, and because he's going to put judges on there and this and that. And I disagree with him coming out and say this. I think it's cowardly what he's saying, or I think he's wrong, or whatever it is. But they can't critique him. They cannot criticize him. And so they are throwing over at least part of their relationship with abortion as an issue to make sure that they're not throwing over any part of Donald Trump. And that's a fascinating dynamic.
Yeah.
Because, look, I still believe if you're in a swing state in particular, you should vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. But I will not hesitate to say Joe Biden is 100% wrong on what he's doing with Israel. I think it's psychopathic. I can go on and on. Now, people may say, well, I don't understand the consistency of that. Well, you don't understand how we think of voting. But these guys, they're out there, and not only do they think of voting that way, they can't even critique Trump. And they're willing to critique the position of abortion bans, which is, even though they're saying it's morally righteous, they're saying like it's unpopular.
Well,
it's not what most people want.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Charlie Kirk is saying, right? Shapiro here is just saying, well, you shouldn't get it because it's sinful, because I have made the
That's
determination.
what Charlie Kirk is saying.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what Shapiro is saying the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Remember, Ben, we had him on, I think maybe from the same show, where he's talking about like we need to slow walk this because actually,
Yes, that's true.
It's moral, but it's not expedient.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah.
need to be expedient. And the thing is that like when you set something up as like moral principle,
Yep.
but we can afford to have some expediency, then you're starting to like, wait, what?
I would not be shocked if they start to avoid this issue altogether because of that very, very like difficult position that they're going to have to be in.
Oh my God, they've been trying to avoid this question. They've been trying to avoid this question since like a week after Dobbs, when they realized what was happening. But the problem is that once you say there is no federal right, then you get stuff like what you saw in Arizona.
Well, I would like to ask Ben Shapiro this question, which is just that, okay, it's sinful, right? I don't agree that it's sinful. I don't believe in your religion. I am not a fundamentalist. I don't believe in your religion. Okay. I disagree that it's sinful. He would say...
Harlot.
Yeah, right. I'm a big slut. Whatever. I don't... Yeah.
Harlot.
So, I don't agree that it's sinful. Okay. Then he would say it's sinful because it's murder. But then how can you slow walk this? How can you say that we have to have some sort of like position to win over, to your point, Sam, the rest of the public? If it's murder, how can you say either way they're in a tough position because they undercut the urgency of it and they undercut the moral case, or they look like hypocrites.
Their rape and incest exceptions. You start to realize like, oh wait, this is a political expediency. They don't actually believe in this. That's why like you had guys going like, well, it's not a legitimate rape.
Yeah. No, that's just stuff they say when they're passing the hat for donations so they can hire more lawyers to put these laws on the books.